Have you ever stood in an elevator, listening to someone so confident they believed they owned the world, unaware that in mere hours, their career would be nothing but ashes? This is the story of a female strategist, sidelined by a newly minted CFO, a man who thought a few visionary buzzwords could replace a decade of expertise, and how she orchestrated his downfall, watching him single-handedly destroy a $37 million deal with his own arrogance. My name is Natalie Brooks, and for 8 years, I'd built my reputation at Vanguard Metrics as the person who could translate the most complex data into strategies that C-suite executives actually understood. Not because I dumbed things down, God. No, but because I knew how to find the story buried in the numbers, the narrative that made million-dollar decisions feel inevitable rather than risky. That Tuesday morning in March, I walked into our glass-walled conference room carrying my latest masterpiece of 47-page strategic analysis for Farewell Logistics, our biggest client at $37 million annually. My team and I had spent 3 months dissecting their supply chain inefficiencies, interviewing their floor managers, tracking their freight patterns across 17 distribution centers. Every insight was bulletproof. Every recommendation backed by data so clean it practically sparkled. Logan Pierce was already there. Of course, our new CFO, 6 weeks into the job, designer suit sharp enough to cut glass, sitting at the head of the table like he'd built this company himself. He had that particular brand of confidence that comes from an MBA and a LinkedIn profile full of thought leadership posts about disrupting the status quo. "Natalie," he said, not looking up from his phone. "Good timing. I've been reviewing your report." The way he said reviewing should have been my first warning, like he was grading a freshman term paper rather than examining 3 months of strategic analysis that could reshape Farewell's entire operational framework. I took my usual seat, third from the head, and watched him flip through my work with the kind of casual disinterest usually reserved for airplane magazines. Around us, the rest of the leadership team filtered in VP of Operations, Head of Analytics, Senior Account Manager, all settling into their chairs with their tablets and coffee cups, ready for what should have been my presentation. "I have to be honest," Logan said, finally looking up, his gray eyes scanning the room to ensure he had an audience. "This is exactly the kind of overly detailed, weeds-level thinking that's been holding Vanguard back." The room went silent. Even the air conditioning seemed to pause. "Excuse me." I kept my voice level, professional, though I could feel my pulse accelerating. "Don't get me wrong," he continued, waving his hand dismissively at my report. "The work is thorough, but Farewell doesn't need thorough. They need vision. They need to see the forest, not spend hours examining each individual tree." He stood up, buttoning his jacket with practiced ease. "Which is why I'll be personally leading tomorrow's presentation. We need to show them transformation, not incremental improvements. Big picture thinking, not—" He gestured vaguely at my report. This represents 3 months of embedded analysis," I said, each word precise. "My team interviewed 47 stakeholders. We identified 3.2 million in recoverable efficiency losses." "Details," Logan said, like the word itself was distasteful. "You can support the presentation with some slides if needed, but I'll be driving the narrative. We're going to show Farewell what real strategic partnership looks like." Support the presentation. Support. His presentation. 8 years of building relationships, establishing trust, becoming the person Farewell's executives called directly when they needed answers reduced to support. I gathered my report, every page of it, and stood. "Of course," I said, my smile so controlled it could have been painted on. "I'll make sure the slides are ready." As I walked back to my office, I passed the wall of awards, the framed contracts, the photos from company celebrations. My reflection in the glass looked composed, professional. No one would have guessed that inside, something fundamental had just shifted. Logan Pierce had no idea what he'd just done. He saw my detailed work as weakness, my precision as pedantry. He couldn't fathom that those details were the foundation Farewell had built their trust on, that my overly thorough approach was exactly why they'd renewed with us for 6 consecutive years. But he would learn. Oh, he would learn. I closed my office door and pulled out an old leather notebook from my bottom drawer, a gift from my first real mentor. Someone who taught me that in corporate warfare, the best victories were the ones your opponent never saw coming. It was time to make a call. The leather notebook felt heavier than its actual weight as I opened it to the first page. Maggie Lorne's handwriting, sharp and decisive, stared back at me. Never let them see you sweat, but always let them see you work. It was dated 7 years ago, from my first week at Vanguard when she'd been Farewell's CFO and had specifically requested me for their account team. Maggie had been more than a client. She'd been my inadvertent mentor. During those early quarterly reviews, she'd taught me the language of executive decision-making, the subtle art of translating ground-level intelligence into boardroom strategy. Data doesn't lie, she'd told me once over coffee. But people lie about data all the time. Your job is to make the truth impossible to ignore. I flipped through pages of notes from our meetings, strategies she'd shared, the small observations about corporate psychology that had shaped my entire approach. When she'd left Farewell 18 months ago to start her consulting firm, she'd made me promise to stay in touch. "You're too good for middle management," she'd said. "When you're ready to make a real move, call me." I wasn't ready to leave Vanguard, not yet, but I was ready to ensure Logan Pierce understood the cost of dismissing expertise. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus, my lead analyst. "Heard about tomorrow. This is bullshit." Then another from Sarah in operations. "Logan just asked for a simplified version of the supply chain analysis. 10 slides max. He said complexity is the enemy of understanding." 10 slides. For a client whose supply chain touched 4 countries and 17 distribution centers, Logan was about to walk into Farewell's boardroom with a coloring book and call it strategy. I pulled up Logan's LinkedIn profile on my laptop. There it was, posted just an hour ago. Excited to present a revolutionary new strategic framework to one of Vanguard's premier clients tomorrow. Sometimes you need to break free from analysis paralysis and embrace visionary thinking. #leadership, #strategy, #innovation. Analysis paralysis, my 3 months of embedded research, reduced to a hashtag. I opened my encrypted messaging app and typed carefully to Maggie. "Hi, Em. Hope you're well. Wanted to give you a heads up about tomorrow's presentation at Farewell. I won't be leading it. New CFO has taken over. He's requested we simplify the approach. Might want to prepare your team for a different style than what you're used to from us." Her response came within minutes. "Interesting. Logan Pierce, right? Saw the announcement. How simplified are we talking?" 10 slides simplified. Vision over data. Jesus. And your original presentation. 47 pages of actionable intelligence, now relegated to support materials that won't see daylight. 3 dots appeared and disappeared several times before her next message. "Send me your original, encrypted. I want to see what we're missing." I hesitated for exactly 3 seconds, long enough to acknowledge I was crossing a line, not long enough to change my mind. The report was my work, my intellectual property developed for Farewell's benefit. If Logan wasn't going to present it, someone should at least see it. Sending now. For context only, of course. Of course. As the file uploaded, I thought about Logan's supreme confidence, his dismissal of everything that had made Vanguard trusted advisors rather than just another consulting firm. He'd spent 6 weeks here and thought he understood our clients better than those of us who'd spent years building these relationships. Another message from Maggie. "This is exceptional work, Natalie. Exactly what we needed. Shame it won't be presented. Logan prefers vision to execution. Farewell prefers results to rhetoric. Always has." I leaned back in my chair, watching the city lights flicker beyond my window. Tomorrow. Logan would stand in front of Farewell's board with his 10 slides and his buzzwords, completely unaware that every executive in that room had been trained by Maggie Lorne to spot empty strategy from a mile away. He thought he was playing chess while everyone else played checkers. He had no idea the board would be playing Go, and I'd already surrounded his position. I closed the notebook and locked it back in my drawer. Tomorrow. I would sit quietly in that meeting, supporting Logan's presentation as requested. I would watch him confidently destroy relationships I'd spent years building, and I would wait. Because Maggie was right about something else she'd written in that notebook. The best strategic moves are the ones that look like mistakes until it's too late to correct them. Logan Pierce was about to make a $37 million mistake. And I was going to let him. The Farewell Logistics headquarters stood like a steel and glass monument to efficiency. 32 floors of calculated precision in downtown Chicago. Their boardroom occupied the northeast corner of the 28th floor, its floor-to-ceiling windows offering a view of Lake Michigan that could make you forget you were about to fight for $37 million. I arrived 40 minutes early, my original report tucked uselessly in my bag alongside Logan's 10 pathetic slides. The room was empty, Arctic cold, every surface reflecting the morning light like a blade. The conference table, a single piece of Brazilian rosewood that probably cost more than my annual salary, could seat 20 but would hold only 8 today. Every seat had been specifically chosen, every position carefully orchestrated by Farewell's executive team. Logan breezed in 20 minutes later, checking his phone and adjusting his Hermes tie. Natalie, good. Can you make sure the screen is working and maybe see if they have that clicker thing for the slides? The clicker thing? This man was about to present to a board that controlled a logistics empire, and he called it a clicker thing. Already done, I said, holding up the presenter remote. Perfect. You're a lifesaver. He didn't mean it. To Logan, I was furniture that occasionally proved useful. The Farewell team arrived precisely at 9. 6 executives filed in with military synchronization, led by their new CEO, James Morrison, Maggie's hand-picked successor. Each face was carved from stone, offering nothing but professional courtesy. Maggie herself entered last, now senior advisor, her presence somehow filling more space than her slight frame should allow. Logan, Morrison said, shaking hands with the kind of grip that tested bones. We're eager to hear Vanguard's new direction. New direction. The words hung in the air like a trap waiting to spring. Logan launched into his presentation with the confidence of someone who'd never truly failed at anything. His first slide was a stock photo of a sunrise over a highway. Farewell Logistics isn't just moving packages, he began, his voice TED Talk smooth. You're moving the future. I watched Maggie's face remain perfectly neutral as Logan clicked through slides that looked like they'd been assembled by a first-year MBA student who'd just discovered PowerPoint animations. Swooshing text about synergistic partnerships, pie charts showing opportunity zones without any actual data, a word cloud. Jesus Christ. He'd actually included a word cloud with terms like innovation, disruption, and transformation in gradually larger fonts. The supply chain of tomorrow, Logan continued, oblivious to the temperature dropping with each slide, isn't about tracking packages, it's about creating experiences. Morrison's pen hadn't moved once, neither had anyone else's. Slide 7 was my personal favorite, a complex-looking diagram that actually said nothing. Arrows pointing to boxes labeled with meaningless phrases like strategic leverage point and value optimization nexus. Questions so far? Logan asked, misreading the silence as rapt attention. Maggie shifted slightly. Just one. What's the actual implementation timeline for this vision? Well, Logan said, his confidence flickering for just a moment. We believe in an agile approach, fluid timelines that respond to market dynamics. So no timeline, Morrison said. It wasn't a question. Flexible timelines, Logan corrected, regaining his footing. We don't want to lock Farewell into rigid structures that might limit innovation. I saw Maggie type something on her phone. My own buzzed seconds later. He's actually worse than I expected. Logan continued for another 15 minutes, each slide more vacuous than the last. He talked about gaming ARI paradigm shifts and best-in-class ideation, while the Farewell executives sat in silence so complete it felt like a held breath. When he finally finished ending with a slide that just said, questions, in 72-point font, the room remained quiet for exactly 10 seconds. Morrison looked at each of his executives, some form of silent communication passing between them. Thank you. Logan, Morrison finally said. This has been illuminating. Logan beamed, completely missing the undertone. I'm glad you see the potential. Natalie here has some supporting documentation if you need any specific details. Every eye in the room turned to me. Maggie's expression was unreadable, but I caught something in it, a question. Maybe, or an invitation. Actually, I said, standing slowly. The supporting documentation Mr. Pierce is referring to is a comprehensive analysis that takes a somewhat different approach, but I understand we're focusing on vision today rather than execution. Execution without vision is just motion, Logan added, clearly proud of the phrase. Morrison stood, signaling the end of the meeting. We'll be in touch. As we packed up, Maggie lingered by the door. Natalie, she said quietly as I passed, that supporting documentation, I'd be interested in understanding what we're not seeing today. I'll make sure it's available if needed, I replied carefully. Logan was already in the elevator when I caught up, practically glowing. Nailed it, he said. Did you see Morrison's face? He was speechless. Yes, I thought, he certainly was. My phone buzzed. A text from Maggie. Lunch tomorrow, 12:30, 16 Chicago. We need to talk about your future. The elevator descended in silence. Logan blissfully unaware that his career had just begun its own descent. The only question now was how far he would fall. And whether I would still be at Vanguard to watch him hit the ground. 16 Chicago occupied the Trump Tower's 16th floor, the kind of restaurant where deals worth millions were discussed over $30 appetizers and where privacy was guaranteed by both price and discretion. Maggie had chosen our table carefully corner booth, backs to the wall, view of both the entrance and the lake. She was already there when I arrived, drinking what looked like Pellegrino with lime, her tablet and phone face down on the table, the Maggie Lorne power move, complete attention, no distractions. Natalie, she said, standing to greet me with an embrace that was warmer than our professional relationship technically warranted. You look well. Considering you just watched someone torch everything you've built with the professional equivalent of a flamethrower. I sat down, accepting the menu from a server who appeared and vanished like smoke. Logan's confident the presentation went well. Logan's an idiot, Maggie said flatly. Morrison called me last night. The exact phrase was, "What the fuck was that?" I believe insult to our intelligence was also mentioned. The server returned. We ordered salmon for her, ribeye for me, both of us knowing we weren't really here for the food. Farewell is pulling the contract, Maggie said once we were alone again. 37 million. Gone. Morrison wanted to do it immediately, but I convinced him to wait until Monday. Give Vanguard time to do damage control. Maybe salvage something. There's nothing to salvage. Logan won't let me present the real analysis. He's convinced his approach is the future. Then Logan's about to learn an expensive lesson. Maggie leaned forward. But I didn't ask you here to discuss Logan's incompetence. I asked you here to discuss your future. The food arrived, perfectly plated, largely ignored. I'm starting a new strategic consulting division within Farewell, she continued. Internal team, external expertise. The board approved it last month. I need someone to run it. You're offering me a job. I'm offering you the job, your job, if you want it. The position you should have had at Vanguard if they had any sense. She pulled out a folder. Slim and black. 3 times your current salary, full benefits, equity participation after year 1, and this is important, complete autonomy in hiring your team. I opened the folder. The number at the top of the offer letter made my poker face slip for just a moment. You can bring your best people, Maggie added. Marcus, Sarah, whoever you trust, will match or exceed their current compensation. You're asking me to gut my own department. I'm asking you to stop casting pearls before swine. Logan Pierce doesn't deserve you. More importantly, he doesn't understand you. To him, you're a support function. To me, you're a strategic asset. I thought about yesterday's meeting, about being reduced to the person who checks if the clicker thing works, about 3 months of analysis dismissed as overly detailed. When would you need an answer? Normally, I'd give you a week, but... She paused, cutting her salmon with surgical precision. The announcement about Vanguard losing the contract will go out Monday morning. It would be advantageous if your resignation was already on your CEO's desk by then. Shows you weren't part of the failure. That's 3 days. That's strategic timing. The difference between leaving as someone with foresight versus leaving as part of the bloodbath that follows. She took a sip of her water. Besides, we both know you've already decided. You decided the moment Logan took credit for work, he didn't understand. She wasn't wrong. I'd known since yesterday that my time at Vanguard was over. The only question had been how to leave on my terms rather than Logan's. "There's something else," Maggie said. "Morrison wants to make a point about respecting expertise, about the cost of arrogance. Logan's presentation will be used as a case study at Kellogg next year. How to lose $37 million in 10 slides. His name won't be redacted." The vindictive part of me, the part I usually kept locked away, purred at the thought. "I'll need to think about it," I said, though we both knew it was a formality. "Of course, but Natalie," she signaled for the check. "Your real presentation, the 47 pages. Logan dismissed Morrison wants to see it. Monday afternoon, after the announcement. Show Farewell what they're actually paying for when they hire you. Logan won't approve that. Logan won't be in a position to approve anything by Monday afternoon." She signed the check without looking at it. "He just doesn't know it yet." As we stood to leave, Maggie handed me a second, smaller envelope. "Your new business cards, just in case you decide quickly." I looked at the card through the envelope's window. Natalie Brooks, Senior Vice President, Strategic Intelligence, Farewell Logistics. Strategic Intelligence. "Your title, your department, build it however you want," she smiled. And for the first time, I saw the shark that had risen to CFO of a logistics empire. After all, someone needs to do the actual work while men like Logan are giving their TED Talks about vision. I left the restaurant with both envelopes in my bag. My decision already made. Marcus and Sarah would get calls tonight. My resignation would be on the CEO's desk by 7 a.m. Monday. And Logan would learn what happens when you mistake precision for weakness, when you confuse expertise with excess. He'd learn it $37 million at a time. Sunday night. I sat at my home office desk with a glass of wine and my laptop, crafting the shortest resignation letter of my career. Effective immediately, I am resigning from my position at Vanguard Metrics to pursue other opportunities. Thank you for 8 years of professional growth. Natalie Brooks. 53 words, no explanation, no transition period, no apologetic padding. After 8 years, 53 words were all Logan's leadership had earned. I scheduled the email for 7:00 a.m. Monday, then opened my personal phone. Marcus answered on the first ring. "Tell me you're finally making your move," he said without preamble. "How do you feel about tripling your salary?" "I feel like you have my complete attention." The conversation took 12 minutes. Marcus had been waiting for this call since Logan's first all-hands meeting, where he'd suggested our analytical models were unnecessarily complex. By the time we hung up, I had my first hire for Farewell's Strategic Intelligence Division. Sarah took more convincing, but only because she didn't believe the number I was offering was real. That's not a typo," she asked for the third time. "Maggie Lorne doesn't make typos." "When do you need an answer?" "Tonight. We announce tomorrow." "We?" "You, me, Marcus. Maybe Diane from implementation if she's smart enough to see what's coming." There was a long pause. I could hear her kids in the background. Sunday night chaos before Monday morning school. "Logan asked me to redo the entire supply chain analysis on Friday," she finally said. "Wanted it simplified for executive consumption. I've been working all weekend to dumb down 3 months of work. And I'm in. God help me, I'm in." By midnight, I had my core team. 3 resignations, all scheduled for the same Monday morning delivery. We'd coordinated our letters to hit within minutes of each other a synchronized departure that would leave Logan without his entire strategic analysis infrastructure just as the Farewell news broke. I should have felt guilty, should have felt some loyalty to Vanguard after 8 years. Instead, I felt the cold satisfaction of a chess player who'd just positioned their pieces for checkmate. My phone buzzed with a LinkedIn notification. Logan had posted again. "Successful week building new client relationships. Excited to announce major strategic wins soon at Vanguard, Metrics, Thought Leadership, Innovation." The comments were already piling up colleagues who had no idea their CFO had just cost them their biggest client. Connections congratulating him on his vision. I screenshot it, knowing it would age like milk in about 8 hours. Monday morning arrived gray and drizzling, the kind of Chicago weather that made the city feel like it was holding its breath. I walked into Vanguard's offices at 8:47 a.m., late enough that my resignation had been delivered, early enough to clean out my office before the news broke. The executive floor was buzzing with unusual energy. Through the glass walls of the main conference room, I could see our CEO, David Stern, standing at the head of the table, his face the color of expensive bourbon. Logan sat to his right, still checking his phone, still oblivious. My former assistant, now intercepted me at my office door. "Natalie, Mr. Stern wants to see you immediately. Conference room A. Tell him I'm unavailable. I'm cleaning out my office." Her eyes widened. "You're... what?" I'd already started putting my few personal items in a box. The leather notebook from Maggie. A photo from my first team at Vanguard. The crystal paperweight they'd given me when I'd saved the Brennan Industries account. "Natalie." David Stern's voice cut through the office. He was standing in my doorway, his usually perfect composure cracking at the edges. "We need to talk." "I don't think we do. David, my resignation was clear." "Your resignation." He stopped, visibly collecting himself. "You resign the morning we lose Farewell. You don't think that looks suspicious?" "I think it looks like someone who saw this coming and refused to be associated with it." Logan appeared behind David, his face finally showing the first cracks of concern. "Natalie, if this is about the presentation, we can discuss your role going forward." "My role?" I turned to face him fully, letting 8 years of professional restraint finally slip. "My role was strategic lead on the Farewell account until you decided PowerPoint animations were more valuable than actual analysis. My role was 3 months of embedded research you dismissed as overly detailed before you even read it." "That's not..." "Farewell wants to see my original presentation," I continued, watching the color drain from his face. "The one you wouldn't let me deliver. Morrison specifically requested it for this afternoon, but since I no longer work here, I'm afraid I can't help with that." "2 more resignations," he said quietly. "Marcus Chen and Sarah Williams, both effective immediately." Logan's phone rang. He answered it, walked 3 steps away, and I heard him say, "What do you mean the contract is terminated?" The official email would come within the hour, but the calls had already started. $37 million, vanishing with the morning rain. I picked up my box, surprisingly light for 8 years of work. "You planned this," Logan said, his voice barely controlled. "You sabotaged me." "No," I said, meeting his eyes directly. "You sabotaged yourself. I just declined to save you from it." I walked past both of them, past the conference rooms filling with panic, past the cubicles where my former colleagues were just beginning to understand what had happened. In the elevator, I pulled out my new business card, running my finger over the raised lettering. The doors opened to the lobby. Through the rain-streaked windows, I could see the Farewell building 6 blocks away, my new office waiting on the 23rd floor. Behind me, $37 million was burning through Vanguard's foundation. Ahead of me, strategic intelligence was about to be born. I stepped out into the Chicago rain, and for the first time in months, I smiled. The email arrived at 10:47 a.m., marked "Urgent, Confidential," in red letters that might as well have been blood. "Dear Vanguard Metrics Leadership Team, after careful consideration of Friday's strategic presentation, Farewell Logistics has decided to terminate our consulting agreement, effective immediately. This decision is final and encompasses all ongoing projects, totaling $37 million in annual contracted revenue. We found the recent presentation to be fundamentally misaligned with our operational needs and frankly insulting to our executive team's intelligence. The lack of substantive data, concrete timelines, and actionable insights represents a dramatic departure from the quality of work we have come to expect from Vanguard. All project materials should be returned immediately. Our legal team will be in contact regarding the termination clauses. James Morrison, CEO, Farewell Logistics." I read it from my new office at Farewell, a corner space with a view of the Vanguard building. Maggie had forwarded it to me with a single comment, "The storm begins." My phone hadn't stopped buzzing. Former colleagues, industry contacts, reporters who'd somehow already caught wind of the largest contract loss in Vanguard's history. I ignored them all, except one. A text from my former assistant. Logan's been called to an emergency board meeting. Security is already at his office. The Vanguard board didn't play games. When $37 million evaporated, someone's head rolled, and Logan had conveniently positioned himself as the obvious target by taking personal credit for the farewell presentation. By noon, the corporate gossip network was in overdrive. LinkedIn was already lighting up with carefully worded posts about exciting new opportunities and seeking new challenges, the polite code for "my company is imploding and I need a job." Marcus knocked on my door, grinning. "You need to see this." He handed me his phone, showing Logan's LinkedIn profile. The morning's boastful post had been deleted, but the internet never forgets. Someone had screenshot it and added it to a thread discussing Vanguard's loss, with the caption, "This aged well," posted 16 hours before losing $37 million contract. "It gets better," Marcus said, scrolling down. Someone leaked his presentation slides. There they were, all 10 slides in their meaningless glory. The comments were brutal. "Is this a real presentation or satire? My intern could do better." Word cloud. "In 2025 for a logistics company. This is what happens when MBAs replace actual expertise." But the killing blow came at 2:00 p.m., an email from David Stern to all Vanguard staff. "Team, I'm writing to inform you that Logan Pierce has departed Vanguard Metrics to pursue other opportunities. We thank him for his contributions and wish him well in his future endeavors. Additionally, we are conducting a comprehensive